Know that MQ2 or MacroQuest is now officially unsupported by the MQ2 development team in such a way where now the software has a natural loopback to check which TLP server you are playing on. And if you're playing on one that does not have relaxed TrueBox or isn't far enough along in expansions where it is somewhat supported, that it will actually just close every 30 seconds on you. Before, when you used to load MQ2 on a TLP that wasn't supported, it would only exit out or crash every time you zoned and you'd have to reload it, which was kind of a pain in the ass. But now MQ2 or MacroQuest, the main botting program, is no longer usable on TLPs like Teek, Tormax, and Oakwind. This was a recent change, I think, back in March. And I'm not saying that people haven't recompiled or rebuilt or have some other type of botting programs, but what I'm saying is the majority of people that were botting, that were real people and not just farms in some other country, were using things like MacroQuest. And now that that is no longer usable, it has definitely changed the demographics of the TLP server. So I was on Teek the other day and I saw off in the distance about 24 plus Earth Mage pets. Now, someone might look at that and say, hey, those guys are botting, but realistically, they're probably not. The reason that you would pick a mage is because it's the most easiest class to box, and with a simple macro or two, and some type of software like Multiplicity or Synergy, which all that does is replicate keystrokes to multiple computers, they could literally have 24 computers set up, and they could press maybe the number 3 on their keyboard to assist and send the pet to attack, and it will do that across all 24. Now, that's not necessarily botting, that's boxing with the assistance of non-supported or illegal third-party software. It's not quite botting. And as far as I've seen on Teek so far, I actually haven't seen anybody actually botting. I don't know. I'm sure that there are people in the higher level ranges, which I'm not to yet because I haven't been playing that much, that have found a way to bypass the MQ2 setup or have found some way to actually bot. But I think what we're now seeing is more third-party software for keyboard strokes and massive mage armies. And to support that, we can easily just take a look at the server demographics, which I've been capturing since launch, and compare it to what the Runes of Kunark demographics were on server Oakwind when MacroQuest was working. All right, the first chart we're going to look at is the population / class spread across all 3 servers using the Oakwind Runes of Kunark data after that server launched so that everything in this graph is related. And then, of course, Teek and Tormax. So when MacroQuest is working, you'll generally see a higher number of bards, and you'll also see a higher number of monks. It's just far easier to use Kiss Assist for those melee classes in order to get them to function and use all their abilities and skills. And because MacroQuest is working in groups, you'll also see a higher percentage of clerics because those melee classes are usually in AoE range and need heals. But now if you look where it says Magician, and this is what I'm talking about, now that MacroQuest is no longer supported at all and doesn't work on the new TLPs without someone being a serious coder and be able to fix it, look at the population level for mages on both Teek and Tormax. 14% of the entire server is made up of mages on Teek and almost 14% on Tormax. Then everything else is relatively close-ish, except for warriors. Obviously, if you are MacroQuest botting and you already have, your bards, clerics in the group and your monks, then you're going to have warriors because you're probably taking out raid targets. So there's going to be a higher percentage of warriors for these boxed armies. First, now people are just using mages and maybe, they're still going to be using warriors, but not as heavily for their groups. So that is one thing that the banning or suspending of MacroQuest on certain TLPs has done. And I don't personally know of a workaround to bot. I know of MacroQuest and that's it, which there's versions on Redguides and MMO bugs, or you can download the original source code and compile it yourself, which people used to do back in the day and probably will need to do with some modifications in order for it to work on the TLPs. I also think that it is being more easily detected now, and it has a higher chance of being detected if someone were to modify that code. If you do find a working version, use at your own risk, but I think in a way that since Darkpaw was not able to step up and get rid of the botters, that MQ2, for the love of the game, came forward and basically made a statement and said, we have never supported the use of MacroQuest on the TLP servers. And they've kind of taken a huge step to make them more genuine and to give you that traditional experience. Now, there are massive boxed armies of mages, but I'm guessing that they are being played more the correct way and not botted. I've seen some comments that, the high population on Teek is a lot of chrono farmers botting, and I don't actually think that's the case. Not saying that they don't exist, but they have been significantly reduced. There are probably more likely, like I said, people with 24 PCs now using third-party keyboard software and controlling mage armies to farm things. So it did change how they farm things. but I think for botting for the most part has essentially been eliminated for the average user. And one other thing that we'll touch on, since I have charts, is we might as well check out the populations across the various servers. Now, they had said, I think what Aerodune or something like that was a popular traditional rule set, so they released Tormax in its honor, and that is probably like the worst thing I've ever seen done. I don't remember Aerodune ever being popular. Somebody else had mentioned that once upon a time back in the day before I started tracking data, that they had this really popular, awesome server launch, and that Teek doesn't compare to it. So what I've gathered from the Teek launch, being online and be able to track live data for population, is that the cap on players or characters allowed on was about 5,000 players. Now I'm gonna go and just assume that other server that launched that was super popular probably also had that cap, if not less of a cap. And what they have had to do for the Teek launch, because they didn't make a duplicate random loot server like they did with Mischief, is they've actually had to modify the server to allow more players on. And I think that this data point right here, over 6,000 players online, makes Teek historically the most popular server to launch and has the most players ever on it at a single time in the history of TLPs. And I don't think that that's going to be much debatable. After tracking data for several years, I believe there was a cap of 5,000 players or so on these TLPs. And this data point right here is on the actual launch. And then I think it came down or something like that. And as it was coming back up, I got a low figure of 2680. But you can see it teeters around that 5,000 mark. And then we have the early morning times at 3425. But that 3425 after that, that's when they made the server upgrade, and you can see now it's at 5526 and up to 6161, which was its highest point that I was able to track, and it's pretty much mellowed out during peak times. Around 4800 is the low point for the last week. Now, how does that compare to Tormax? If you look very closely at the bottom green line, you'll see Tormax. And I think it only had that 412 players on that first day because people couldn't get on Teek, and then it sits in the hundreds and it floats around probably 200s. I mean, that server is way more than dead on arrival. There's just no point to play on Tormax server. It's a traditional rule set. We've already been doing it since 2015. Nobody wants to keep doing that without these unique rules. And as you can see, Mischief is still retaining the lead even over Oakwind and for sure over Tormax. And if you look at the last data point, Oakwind plus Tormax still is about the same as the Mischief population. You can see that Mischief took a hit, as did all the other servers when Teek launched, and then it looks like they came back up a little bit. So what I'm assuming is happening is a lot of people off Mischief wanting to experience that again went and leveled their characters up, probably have them max level in some raid guild, and now they're rotating between two servers, which is Mischief and Teek. And this is absolutely in line with the most popular live server, which is Freyonavai, a free trade server, doesn't have bonus loot, but this is the rule set that is popular. It's the rule set people want. The people that want to play on traditional servers don't need a TLP for it. They go to, there's Project Quorum, there's P99. There are already private emulated servers on those traditional hardcore rule sets for people to go and play on. We don't need that. We don't need to pay for that to play on these TLPs. So the next TLP that they launch, there should never be a traditional TLP launched probably again. Honestly, there's no reason for it whatsoever. Maybe in 4 years, they want to capture another round of people that want to play for some reason on the official servers, the traditional rule set. Even Oakwind with its encounter lock, and I thought that they would take that to Teek, but they didn't. So they keep leaving their best rule sets behind. They don't make servers like they should. There should have been a Mischief replica probably launched every year for more people to experience it, because what happened on Mischief, and that was a great server and still is that it started to get so far that people didn't want to come back and start at that point after hearing how awesome the bonus random tradable loot was. So they wanted to experience that, and we had to wait, what, 2 years or 3 years or so for another Mischief type clone. And I think that's ridiculous, and it just kind of hurts the game. The random bonus free tradable loot allows people that have kids that work full time to spend their money. They buy chronos, that's their money. They work somewhere at their job, got the money, bought the chronos. You should be able to buy in and buy somebody else's time that went and farmed that item. All you're doing is paying someone essentially to get the items for you. And a lot of people have problems with that because it's pay to win. But with how the servers are set up now, the person farming that stuff is also winning. So that's what it is. It's a win-win situation. You pay to win. That person gets a bunch of actual chronos they could sell for real money or fund their accounts. It's win-win. And I liked that aspect of the TLPs and that portion of chrono. If they wanted to get rid of chrono farmers and botters, they would get rid of the chrono altogether. which I could see them making a server that maybe supports that. I mean, the things they can do with these TLPs and the rule sets is like infinite. So I'm all for like absolutely no box servers. I'm all for no chrono servers. I'm all for any type of rule set you want, any type of time, like anything. If you want to add something like the plane of knowledge that people can travel around in at the start of Classic, I'm more than fine with that. But as long as people are adhering to the rules within those limits, it makes it fair for everybody to play, and you should be able to play how you want to play. And I am absolutely shocked and surprised that they keep relaunching traditional TLPs, because it's the same shit we've had over and over again. Do something fun. The game's 25 years old, and there's too few Mischief type servers, there's too few Oakwind servers, and some of the other ones that had, you know, the expansion or level locks, there's too few of those. This should be completely experimental at this point, because now we're finding out that the bonus tradable loot is the most popular rule set. It's hands down the most popular rule set on the live servers for Verona Vi. Mischief is still the second most populated TLP, and now Teek alone has more players on it, or I'm sorry, accounts, characters, than all of the other TLPs combined. And probably you could throw in a shit ton of the live servers too. That's how popular that rule set is. And for them to like not do more experimentation with the rules is just, it's kind of a disgrace to the actual EverQuest community. In my opinion, a lot of people are hardcore traditional. I've been playing since 99, took some time off, did the World of Warcraft thing, but I've been an on and off player, especially on these TLPs. I've done my time of playing traditional. I don't have that time anymore. I already put that into the game. I got a lot of memories. It was enjoyable. I'll always cherish some of the stuff that I went through, some of the people I met before I started boxing, but that's P99 now. That's those private emulation servers. They should not be doing that where we have to pay money for an account to play, because shit, dude, I'm getting old. I'm here to have some fun now. I like the challenge, but at the end of the day, if I can't get some shit done in 1 to 2 hours logging on, then it's not worth my time. I don't want to spend 1 to 2 hours looking for group, which is how I started boxing in the first place a long time ago. You know, nobody's interested in that. And I still see people leaving comments or in forums where they've missed that initial rush on Teek and they're having a hard time finding a group, and everybody's like, join a guild, you know, start your own group. Like, it's not how it used to be, and it's never going to be that way again. And the sooner more of us accept that and realize that boxing is just like the way of life now, because everybody's a min-maxer trying to rush to the end game, and then I don't know what they do, power level alts after that, switch to their server, do something else. That's just the way it is now. There is a huge competition for our attention and time, and it was really cool that I spent 3 days straight with no sleep farming Raster and Lore Guck for my Monk Epic back in the 2000s. I'll never do that again. That doesn't even interest me in the slightest. I haven't even done a Monk Epic since then, just because I got fucking PTSD from how hardcore the old game was. So from here, you can check out my 1 through 20s Personas leveling guide, or you can watch my twink character from Mischief, level 2 Paladin, tank Veneral Sathir.
We got P99, we got TLP, we got private servers and test that's free. Some of us pay, some of us don't, some of us play, some of us won't. Did you just break my mess? Did you just train me? Did you just miss a healing? Are you gonna rest me?